Good morning. Today I'd like to continue on with the Colombian barrel that we were working on the other day. I have the two Colombians. I have the one that's in pretty good shape that I wish was mine, and we have the one that I'm working on that's been really pitted and rusted and stuff. And remember, we talked about it last time. Um, when you're working on two guns at the same time, that means that you're going to end up with double the problems that you would have if you just had one gun to work on. This weekend, I got a bolt in the mail for the other rifle, the one that I'm helping with, and so I put it in the gun, and it didn't seem to. I mean, it fit okay, but it just didn't seem like it was really nice and loose in there. So I said, well, let me try it inside mine, the one with all the corrosion on it, and it wouldn't turn at all. I put it in, and it would only turn maybe 3/4 of the way before it would stop. And I could force it if I wanted to, but there was really no need to force it. When that happens, when you notice that something like that happens, it's usually the extractor that's the problem. And the extractor is either sticking out too far, which means that you're not going to be able to put the bolt in all the way, which is going to make it kind of hard to push down. Sort of like when you have less head space, it makes it hard to push it down. Or if it's too much up against the bolt head itself, what's going to happen is you're not going to get an extraction. It's going to go, and it's not going to have room to get underneath the lip on the end of the cartridge to pull it out. So my problem was the first, which was that there was a problem with the extractor, and that the bolt wasn't closing. So the first thing I did was I took the extractor off and ran the bolt to see if it would work, and it worked just fine. So then you knew that it was the extractor. But because it was working on the one gun and not on the other gun, I thought, well, maybe because my gun had too much corrosion on it, and that was some way affecting the extractor. And it might be. So I spent the day going through the gun, looking and looking and looking, and doing a little bit of cleaning here and making sure that if there was any bumps from the pitting, that I try to smooth them out a little bit, and maybe doing a little polishing, but it still wasn't working. But the thing you have to be very careful of when you're polishing inside the receiver is you've got these little grooves, one on the bottom here, which let me get the bolt. Which is this one right here that sits right in front of the handle, and then you have your two up in the front, which are for these two right here. And when you turn the bolt, you want those things in there good and tight, because they're gonna be holding the bolt head up against the chamber, so that when you fire, it doesn't come flying back in your face. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're going to polish or do things around those, that you're very, very careful that you don't in any way um, change the configuration, because it could be very dangerous to do that. So I didn't do that. So what I did was I went up here, up here where the extractor goes in. There was some corrosion here, and whatever. And I was watching TV and working on it, and then I had an idea. I said, let me see if the other Mauser bolts, since I have 7 other Mausers or 8 other Mausers, let's see if the other bolts have the same problem going into this gun. So I took took 3. I took my Brazilian, my Chinese, and my Turkish Mauser bolts out, and they fit inside there perfectly, and they worked fine. So it wasn't the gun, it's the bolt, and not the bolt in particular, it's the extractor. So that's the way there I came to an agreement with myself that that's what the problem was. I had an extra extractor, so I swapped them out, and the bolt. This is the bolt here. and the bolt turns just fine. So it was the extractor. Problem solved. Of course, if I had done that in the first place, then I probably would have saved myself some time during the day. A more serious problem that I have is with the other gun, with the gun A, the cleaner gun, is that it failed the no-go test. We're talking headspace again, and I'm not going to go into headspace because it's incredible. I did a couple of videos on headspace if you want to go back and watch them. But basically what headspace is, the way that it affects things is you have your bolt, you have your chamber, and it's how close the bolt is to the chamber to hold the round in, so that when you fire it, there's no leadway at all. It holds that round tight up against the chamber. If there's any play in there, then that can cause problems. So that's headspace in a nutshell. Well, it's too loose, which means that when I put the gauge inside the gun and I turned the handle, it closed without any trouble at all. Really well. There might have been a little whisper of a feel, but it just closed, which meant that the cartridge is not sticking out far enough for it to be flush up against the bolt. So supposedly a positive um, positive test, or a test that means it's okay, is that the bolt is going to stop. You're going to be turning the bolt and it's going to stop because there's not enough room for it to turn inside the chamber, or right just outside the chamber. If it's a fail, then what happens is it just closes, and that's what happened. Like I said, it just closed. So I thought, they're old guns, and wear and tear on them causes this to happen. It causes the erosion of the chamber itself, so that the cartridge goes in a little bit further. And we're only talking thousandths of an inch, a thousandth of an inch to make a difference. So what I did was just as a screen test. It's not a test. It's not scientific. It's not. It's not anything other than maybe Tom Dockery's test to see if it's going to be worth ordering a field guide, a field gauge for it. I put a little piece of tape on top of the no-go gauge, and if the way I measured it on mine, it's 0.0, it's 4 thousandths of an inch, which is the next step up from, you have your go, which you should be able to close it because it's big enough for it to go inside. The no-go, which means it's sticking out just too far, so that sticking out far enough that you can't close the bolt on top of it. And then you have your field gauge, which is just a little bit longer. And this is the absolute ultimate most that your headspace can be. This is it safely. If it is more than that, then you're going to have some problems. It's going to be a safety issue. So what I did was I put a little piece of tape on it, and it's 4 thousandths of an inch. The difference between the no-go and the field gauge is almost 5 thousandths. So by putting that tape on there, I kind of simulated a field gauge. It had trouble closing on adding the extra 4 thousandths of an inch onto it. So does that mean that I feel like the gun is safe now? It's like, no, it does not mean that. What it means is that it probably will pass the field gauge test. So I ordered a field gauge test for it to see if we can determine whether or not the headspace is correct for this gun. I don't even want to think about it if the headspace is not correct and that the field gauge fails. but we'll talk about that if that happens. But I'm pretty sure because of my little tape test that we're going to be able to save this gun. So anyway, so that's where I'm sitting at right now as far as for those two guns. But this is the barrel. This is the barrel here that had, you can still see there's some pitting on it. This is the one that I took and I filed. I did a bunch of filing on, and then I took sandpaper to it this morning, sandpaper with oil, and I sandpapered the hell out of it to try to smooth it off a little bit from where the file marks were, and it looks like it worked pretty good. Like I said, there's still some pitting, but none of that's going to show. So I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on the bottom side of the barrel because it's not going to show. But it's gonna look good. It's gonna look fine. So I got the barrel done now. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the rear sight back on. I had to take it off because it had a broken spring on it. So I'll have to put the spring back in and then put this back on. And then I'm going to start on the wood, and the wood is going to be difficult to do, but that's all right because that's what I like to do. But like I said, with you working with these old guns, you just never know what you're going to run into. And the secret is that over time you learn how to troubleshoot like any other machine. You learn how to troubleshoot. You try to figure out what is the most common cause, and you work your way down to what's the one you really don't want it to be. And so we're still alive. And like I said, I ordered that gauge from Brownell, and it should be here. I'm a member of their club, so it should be here in a couple of days, and we'll see where we're at by then. But anyway, I'm really happy with the way my barrel came out. It was a lot of work getting it done like that, but it'll be a lot of fun to be able to shoot it when the time comes. All right, thank you.